Welcome, everybody. I'm Johnny McCoy, the CEO and founder of the WhiteFlag app, and you are listening to the WhiteFlag Warriors Podcast, where we interview people with amazing stories from different walks of life and backgrounds who are not only in the struggle. Most of the people who we've interviewed on here are on the front lines of the crisis, and that means they're personally experiencing it. Their family members are personally experiencing it, and they're doing something about it. The people who come on here, they're utilizing their platforms, their websites, their nonprofits, whatever it may be, to get the word out there that you are not alone, that they're like you, that we're all like each other, and that's what we need to pull each other out is to recognize and share commonalities and directly relate to individuals who are going through the same things as us. And that's what WhiteFlag is. For those of you who don't know, I know we're almost, I don't even know what episode this is by this time, but we are a little bit further along. And sometimes I forget to tell you guys what it is that WhiteFlag does, and is going to do. So just very briefly, WhiteFlag is a safe, anonymous platform where you're instantly and anonymously connected to somebody else who's going through the same mental health struggles, issues, and challenges as you. It's a free platform. It will always be free. There's no catch. We don't sell your data. We don't use your data nefariously. I am a civil rights attorney. I've been fighting for the privacy rights and, the civil rights of individuals ever since I've been practicing law, really. And that will continue to carry over into this company, which I focus my entire attention on. There's no catch. We just want you to find somebody who can hear what you're not able to say, somebody who can relate to you just based off of, where you've been in your life and your past experiences, and then you'll be validated. And to feel that validation and to feel that freedom from judgment has been something that has propelled us to over 110,000 downloads. Over 1.2 million messages have been exchanged on our platform. And we have been adding team members throughout the entirety of this process. And we are no more excited about anybody that we brought in than I am, and that we are Miss Ollie. And that's who we have today on the podcast. As you can see, her name is Miss Ollie Rose. I call her Miss Ollie because she is a very sophisticated lady, woman, whatever it is that she wants to be called on that day. Miss Ollie runs the show, and whenever she comes into a room, she lights it up. She's got a unique perspective, and most importantly, I think the coolest thing about her is, she's been through a lot, and you can tell by the way she carries herself that she's a strong person. And that's my favorite thing about her is she exudes this sort of confidence. And when you hear somebody who's gone through as much as she has and continues to go through as much as she has, who has that kind of confidence, it rubs off on you. And so when I'm around her, I feel stronger and I feel like I can handle more. And so I'm just absolutely thrilled to have her on tonight. I thought I was going to be doing something else. And as soon as I heard I was going to be talking to Miss Ollie, my anxiety went away. So Miss Ollie, how are you doing? Thank you for coming on the podcast.
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I love talking.
Yes, absolutely. Speaking of that, so where are you right now? Not physically, but where are you out there in the universe of internet, of book, online, whatever it may be, so where people can kind of, check in on you and what it is that you're working on and your message?
Yeah, I'm primarily on TikTok. That's like my home base. That's pretty much where my original platform started. But TikTok and Instagram are both my TikTok for videos, and then I love Instagram stories. I post way too much on my Instagram stories, but that's where most of my updates are.
Yes. So, what's your reach? This is something that I'm learning about now.
My reach?
Yes, ma'am.
It depends on the platform, and it depends on which algorithm is feeling. So on TikTok, I've got 1.4 million followers. I'm 6,000 away from 1.5.
Well, that's what we're doing right now. I promise you.
I need 6,000 of you to come hang out with me.
Yeah. So how do they find you? It's Miss Ollie Rose?
Nah, it's at Ollie Rose, OLLIEROSE_.
Okay, go follow her and check out her content. And what is some of the stuff that people will see if they go and follow you?
Oh, man. Mental health stuff, politics, raging leftist. So So a lot of that, I was doing parenting content for a while. I'm not doing parenting content anymore, just because of the way that some people were speculating things without any information. So I decided we were just going to take that away completely. But old content has loads of parenting stuff, loads of that.
Very cool. You and Brave Dave have that in common, which is, I think it's like the most relatable stuff. I don't have any kids yet, but I think that y'all's parenting stuff is the most relatable thing. You know, I love
talking about it. It's cool talking about treating your kids like people.
yeah. And the comedy of it, you know, like we need to laugh more. And that's something that I love with your content is like, it's serious stuff and there's messages in there, but it's also, you know, by the end of it, you don't feel like you've been like dumped on like a professor trying to like stand on a soapbox. You're actually like laughing and like, oh, I got something out of that.
Yeah, I try to make content that like I personally would want to receive, which obviously means that there will be people that don't receive it that way. Right. But I mean, other people are obviously receiving it. So.
I love it. And you know, I really do like you a lot as a person. I think that you're great for not only this movement, but society in general. You know, where I come from, as you said, you're a raging leftist. Where I come from, it's the other end of the spectrum, which is totally fine because guess what? We're all struggling. We're all dealing with mental health issues. Doesn't matter what end of the spectrum you're on, whether you're far left, far right, or, you know, somewhere just like kind of floating around trying to find a home like me. And, you know, I just love it. I just love it about you. I love your perspective. You know, it, you know, coming from a place where, you know, you don't really hear a whole lot, you know, from that side of the aisle. You know, it's interesting to hear your point of views, not only on mental health, but also life. And I never use this word on this podcast, but I do like to hear, you know, kind of where you're at politically and stuff, because, you know, you are a very intelligent person who puts a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, well, and as far as like politics goes, like I was raised in an extremely like in a Republican household. Yeah. So like, and my dad was in the military. He did 20 years in the Air Force. And so I feel like a lot of my perspective comes from like once I started having kids and I took my rose-colored glasses off and I realized a lot of what I was taught was just like very biased in the worst way possible, where we're just not being inclusive. And so I like talking about political stuff now and about mental health because I still like I'm not anti-military. I love the military. You know what I mean? Like I respect the people that are in the military so much, and their mental health matters to me so much, and the lack of mental health care that they get, the lack of care that they get from the VA, the lack of care that they get from people in general in society. So like it's all important to me because like everybody's mental health matters, like regardless of what political side you're on. And while I do like to speak about like left policies, I like my care on who I'm speaking about isn't just for the left. Like everybody's mental health matters.
Yeah. And if you understand people's mental health, then you understand that the opinions that they have, the veracity at which they express those opinions, everything comes from their life experience. Yeah. Right. So you're like literally like hearing these opinions and thoughts that are totally counter to what you believe and what you hold true and honest. And you're like, you know, screw that person. Like they don't understand. Like this is wrong for the world. This is wrong for me. This is wrong for our country. Yeah. And they don't step back and realize, okay, you know, they must have gone through something. You know, for this individual to feel, you know, this way, even if it's not very strongly, that still you have gone through a lack of things, you know, and so that's what I kind of preach is like literally if you look at things from a mental health aspect first and foremost, then everybody's got an interesting point of view. I want to know all of it. I want to know, you know, everything that you know is the scariest, you know, positions that people have that might make people clutch their purses or pearls and go, oh my God, I can't believe that, you know, we'll end up like, you know, like a communist country or something like that. But like, to me, like it's important for us to hear, you know, from each other, like where we're at, what we're, you know, what opinions we're forming, because none of that is dangerous. None of the dialogue and connection is dangerous. It's just as long as we're able to learn from each other. And so, I mean, I don't even really talk about it much anymore because, you know, kind of what I went through sort of like veered me in the direction of, you know, where I am, you know, as far as like politically and Even as far as I am, in the justice system, it's all from my life and what I went through. And so that's what I want to talk about with you. I want to talk about, where your mental health journey started. And I want you to go back as far as you can. For instance, mine starts with my great grandfather killing himself, taking his life, ending his pain, in the early 1900s. And my dad found him and stayed with him in the room, waiting on his school bus the next day for 12 hours with this dead grandfather of his, and never talked about it. So my mental health journey starts there and goes through all these crazy things that happened to me in my childhood. And then, so where does yours start? I'm just trying to get you prepared as to what I'm looking for here.
I'm trying to think of where my memory starts, because I have bad, I got some stuff that's like just gone, or at least until I think I'm ready to like dive into it. So I'm trying to think. I feel like it had to have been when I was like 11. I think 11, 12 was when I started kind of like going through like bouts of depression and anxiety. And also, for context, for anybody that doesn't know, I'm late diagnosed autistic. So like I was autistic in elementary school, I was autistic in junior high, and I was autistic in high school, but undiagnosed and diagnosed with ADHD instead. So a lot of my like weird quirks kind of just went under the radar as like me being a weirdo. And I
your mental health journey started early.
Yeah, man. Yeah. But you know what sucks is my mom was always a really big advocate for like ADHD and for mental health, because she learned that she had ADHD. And so she wanted to be the best advocate that she could be. And I think for a bit, she definitely was. She really, really did try. But then once I hit my teens, but yeah, I would say like probably 6th grade was where the depression kind of started, but 7th grade was when the bullying got bad.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine that there are a lot of people out there who can relate to you going undiagnosed, whether it be undiagnosed autism, undiagnosed generalized anxiety disorder for me.
Yep.
And I just thought that I was like weaker. I didn't think I was different. I just thought that I couldn't handle regular emotions and regular shit. Right?
Yeah, because my parents, they were also kind of like, handle your shit.
Yeah.
Don't just go, like, and I know for a time it was them trying to like make me this like strong person to be like, yeah, go handle your shit. You're tough. But like, I was not tough. I was anxious and scared. And in 7th grade was definitely the worst. After 7th grade, I kind of like, I figured out what my mask needed to be in the public, but I used to get bullied a lot in 7th grade because I was weird and I was annoying, and like I used to roar in the hallways and
misunderstood. Misunderstood is the words that were used to describe me.
You see, so I used to get so sick that I would stay home, and my parents took me to the doctor a bunch because they were worried I had tummy problems, but it was definitely just anxiety.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I missed. So 7th grade is interesting that you bring that up as like the year that everything started going. Mm-hmm. So for me, that's the same. 7th grade, I had over 65 absences, and they were all absences after first period. So I would go to the nurse and I would just be rolling around holding my stomach. And as soon as my mom would show up, and she showed up every time, my mom is incredibly codependent with me. We were incredibly codependent on each other. She was going through domestic violence and all that other good stuff that was going on at home. So she would come pick up her Johnny Angel and take him home. And as soon as she pulled up, or maybe as soon as she said she was coming, it went away. It went away. Whatever it was. It's almost
like that was anxiety.
Right. It's almost like it was something other than a physical issue in my stomach. And yeah, I mean, I had severe problems like going to restaurants and concerts and sporting events because of the bathroom situation. Yeah. I always wanted to be a girl during that time because nobody, like guys, when you're sitting down, if you're sitting down in a bathroom and you're a guy and it's like at an event where people are drinking, somebody's going to talk shit to you. They're going to pour a drink over the top of the thing. I mean, that's just my experience. And
what?
So, oh yeah. Oh yeah, men get picked on for not standing at the urinal if you're in the bathroom. I mean,
And
that
you know
was my
what's
experience.
so effing frustrating as a parent on that real quick is like we teach little kids at first to like sit when they pee, like
Yeah.
boys sit when they pee, because then it doesn't get everywhere.
Right.
And
Right.
when you get older, the splash zone from being this high up away from the toilet, y'all are getting pee everywhere. You should all be sitting down.
Listen, we could start that movement if you want to. We can, hashtag sit down men or something like that. But yeah, so what, the bullying stuff is something that we hear a lot about on White Flag. Our users are 18 and up, but a lot of the individuals on there connect because they're still getting bullied, and and their personality was shaped, by being bullied. So kind of tell us about that a little bit. What was that like?
I mean, my first like big bully was my mom for sure.
Yeah.
And I've broken it down to once I hit 7th grade, 8th grade, we moved to Alaska from Utah, so it was a big move for the family. Yeah, it was a big move. It was just bad for everybody. It's too dark there for people with depression.
Yeah.
It was a bad move.
Seattle. Yes. So why did you move to Alaska? What was the reasoning for that?
Military.
Oh, military. You were really a military child.
Yeah. I moved around. We moved. So we hit Alaska. I hit 8th grade. I feel like that was the age where my mom felt like I was competition. And
really?
So, yeah.
So elaborate on that. What do you mean?
Like I was like dorky looking, but I was like starting to come into like, puberty.
Right.
And like I was developing my personality and who I was. And, it was a very like militant household in a way where like if your parents say you do something, then you do it. You don't ask why. But it's so funny because my mom raised me to ask why. Like she raised me to, but she didn't like it if it was with her at all. Yeah. So stuff at home started getting rough, and then I started going to like 8th grade, and I didn't want a repeat of 7th grade where I was getting like picked on by the cooler kids. So that was when I decided I was going to be a skater kid, and skater kids were cool in 8th grade. So
in Alaska, I bet too.
Yeah.
As well, huh?
That was the mask. So we pulled out the skater boy gear, and I tried to like walk around like I didn't care about anything, like the whole fake it till you make it situation. I had to.
Survival.
I had to, because at the house it was chaos. There was screaming every day, yelling every day. Somebody was getting whacked for something. I used to get called a little bitch all the time, like just shit. The depression came.
Man, we have a lot in common. So it's crazy because like your parents probably wouldn't say that we raised Miss Ollie in a toxic environment. I don't know.
No,
they wouldn't.
Mine would say that it was a loving home.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Like, why are you talking shit about us? Like, it's just for attention.
Well, I don't talk to my parents anymore, but my parents definitely are angry about the way that I speak about my childhood. And I always talk about it in a way where I'm like, you know what? This shit fucking sucked. And I know that you guys tried your best. I don't think that your best was good enough. And after becoming a parent, I even more so don't understand the things that you used to say and do to me. But you did what you could with the resources that you had. And while I don't agree with it, I do understand they had their own trauma and they were having a parent through that.
It's like, going through an experience, visiting another country and coming back and having good things to say and then negative things to say so that other people can learn about the place. And then maybe the place can fix their shit a little bit.
Yeah.
But then when you do it about your family, they're like, how dare you? This is not...
Make me look bad in front of people.
Do you have any siblings?
I do. I have... So...
Uh-oh. This is going to be good.
I have So he's my half-brother that I was, like, brought up with. So my dad is my stepdad, but he's been my dad since I was, like, 6 months old. Or was. I don't think he's my dad anymore. And then... my biological father, who I met when I was 18, who was actually a lawyer in North Carolina.
Okay. Similar.
Oh, he's awful. he ditched me at an airport and then cut me. That's a whole fucking story. So I have a half brother with him. And then 2 years ago, I found on 23andMe, I have a half older sister from my biological father that he doesn't know about, but her and I are like besties.
Shut up. You found her on 23andMe and now y'all are cool?
Oh, she is like the sister that I always dreamed of having. She went to college. She was out there. She went to college for the things that I wanted to go to college for. She actually lives in LA and is doing what I wanted to do if I would have gone to college. Like, it's weird. She's so sick. She's so cool.
It would be a dream come true for me at this stage because, I mean, you know, I'm with you. I don't talk to my parents. My shit's new, though, because I just got on antipsychotics, which shout out to being on the right medication. I'm going to talk about it every single time that I talk in public or on a podcast. Antipsychotics are amazing
I love my meds.
Yeah, if they're given for the right reason, for the right dose to the right person, don't be afraid. Ask your doctor about them. But once I got healthy, I was like, okay, well, what the hell just happened for the last? Yeah. And so I started talking about it, and my dad was the first. I lost my dad first because he was arrested for hitting my mom in the face with a bottle, and I walked up as he was getting arrested. I was 10, and that led to me wanting to become a lawyer and not wanting to go to jail. So I have to tell it. Like, I don't understand like how I'm supposed to like operate.
Like, maybe you shouldn't be hitting people, sir. Yeah, like, we have to. This is an important detail here.
But I mean, we never spoke about it. Never. I mean, there was ambulance. There was, police. It was a big deal. It was in the newspaper eventually because he was in another case. And we never spoke about it. So I think like the fact that I'm speaking about it now is like it was not real. It was hidden so well. It wasn't real. And now like it's permanent. This is the story.
You've said it.
But I talk, I just like I am, with anybody else. I'm like, my poor dad like walked in and found this dead grandfather and stayed with him for 12 hours and grew up in the South where you don't talk about it. So I'm like
that's some trauma. There's trauma there.
And my little brother, who's the only person in my family that I still talk to, he was like,
my brother.
Yeah, he was like, nah, they gone. And then you heard that my mom was in the hospital recovering from Xanax withdrawal. And that was that wasn't my drug of choice. It was like the greatest thing ever. Like, for 10 years, Xanax and I danced a deadly dance, but, I can't be around people who I know are high off
like actively using that shit. Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? So I lost mom. This is all in the last couple of months. So that's what I mean by like talking to other people, like you and I, like makes me feel better knowing like how strong you are. You have your family and your kids and they don't have their grandparents. No, I'm worried about it, It
makes me sad. They have my husband's mom. She's absolutely lovely, but she lives in Hawaii and, we live in Arizona, so they don't get to see her too often, but they don't have grandparents from my side. They have my brother though, my little brother.
My little brother too. And like literally the best person ever. Takes the missing lovely space.
Yeah. I love my brother so much. Him and I didn't actually grow up too close. Looking back, him and I have very different like views on what our childhood was. So we can't really like have conversations about it because he views it very differently than I did.
Oh my God, Miss Ollie, we're like twins. And my little brother, so when I first started talking about it with him, I started talking about him first 2 years ago. He was like, I don't know about that, man. Like even like the arrest, like he saw the bottle fly. And then he went through 5 years of depression. He got kicked out of school. He was, all this crazy stuff. And now he's like he's a bigger mental health advocate than me. He's sober, like, oh yeah.
And my brother there is so bad.
And we have conversations about our childhood that are so validating, because like we got spanked, but we were 3 boys that played, sports. My brothers played college football. We were the man.
I'm going to tell you right now though, I got 3 boys and they don't get spanked and they're pretty cool.
I listen, I'm with you on that. I used to put on 20 pairs of underwear, but it wasn't the spankings, it was like the stuff you're talking about, like the little bitch, it's like the comments.
The emotional shit.
Yeah. When my mom was drunk, she would be like, God, you're fat. And I was like 12.
Yeah. Oh my God. Did you grow up in a Weight Watchers house? I grew up in a Weight Watchers house. So my mom obsessively counted points. I have an eating disorder that I'm
sure after that. Golly.
That was another thing where like, she counts her like Weight Watchers points. There was a bit where like, when I got older, I was like, I want to count points. And she was like, okay, here's a points calculator before like smartphones were a thing. And so I watched her talk about her body so negatively for the longest time. And, we grew up in like the early 2000s where like a size 4 was considered fat. So it just, so I ended up dealing with like anorexia for a really long time. And she used to like praise it so bad. She'd be like, I wish I had your skinny body. And I'm sitting here like, it's because I'm abusing Molly, Adderall, and cigarettes and caffeine.
Oh
like,
God, yeah. Here's the prescription, Mom, if you want to.
Military doctors will give you anything if you walk into that little office and say, I have ADHD. I need my Adderall. And they'll be like, what amount? And I'm like, 20 milligrams extended release. And they're like, all right, here you go. And then they just give it to you. And I'm like, solid.
Trust me. I went to law school. It's like a pharmacy, for Adderall and throughout and it's like, if you don't take it where, it's like not taking steroids against football players that are all on roids. Like I would have failed law school if I, hadn't been able to get access to.
Well, I was originally prescribed it legitimately. And then, it started as me being on it because of the whole ADHD thing. Yeah. And it was very helpful until.
I hear that a lot, I hear that a lot. Yeah. A lot of people.
There's a threshold. There's a threshold. And then when you surpass the threshold, it's like being on crack. And I really liked that feeling. So I was just like, let's do this.
And you don't eat. I remember those days.
Yeah, no. I'm 5'9". I currently weigh 165 pounds. But I used to weigh 115.
At 5'9"?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Yeah. When I met my now husband, I was tiny, like tiny. Yeah. My eyes looked sunken in, like, and it wasn't until recently to where I was like, I think I have an eating disorder. Like I think me obsessing over every little ounce of everything that goes into my body probably isn't a good thing. And that's honestly, having kids is what saved me. Because when I got pregnant at 21, I quit everything cold turkey. No more Adderall, no more cigarettes, no drinking. I was like, nope, we're done. We're not doing this to our bodies.
Good for you.
Yeah, it was hard. But
you're a true survivor. You just pull yourself out. Nobody threw you a ladder. You're like, I just got to fucking go through.
I just got to fucking stop. Well, I didn't want my kids growing up feeling the way that I felt growing up. And so, and I grew up in a house of alcoholism. And so, I wasn't having it. I already come from an addictive personality household. And so.
And the problem with coming from a household where people are on substances that alter their personality is like the best way that I can describe it is if you tell your kids that you love them, they'll believe you.
Yeah.
If you tell your kids that they're fucking awful, they'll believe you.
If you tell your daughter that you wish that you had aborted her, she's going to think that you wish that
she's going to believe you.
Abort it.
Doesn't matter how many drinks you had. Doesn't matter how bad a day. It doesn't matter how many fucking Legos they left on the floor and caused you pain in your foot. If you say it one time, it may stick with them forever. And that's what happened to me. It was just like, my dad his mouth is just nuts, nuts, 12-year-old, boy on the schoolyard is my dad. He doesn't need it. My dad doesn't need a single cocktail. He don't need to be angry. That dude will find your insecurities and dig it out with a spoon and then eat it and laugh in your face.
And be so happy about it.
Oh my God. He loves
narcissism.
Yeah.
Narcissism.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I totally understand the wanting and the needing to be totally different than, what it was that you were growing up around, because I mean, that's what shaped me and that's what shaped you. And so I kind of want to hear more about you and your identity. Yeah. I've heard you talk before about how you identify, yourself and all that good stuff. So let me hear it. What's that like figuring out hey, I don't fit into this box.
The non-binary thing.
All of it.
Yeah, man. I don't know. It honestly wasn't until the last few years. I've always felt okay, so I was always my mom's competition, but she always really enjoyed dressing me up in what she would have wanted. And so growing up, I was like, okay, well, I'm a girl and I don't really know what I'm doing, but she's really enjoying this, and in society I'm supposed to be girly, so I'll just take whatever mask she's giving me and I'll put that on. So growing up, even in like high school, I would wear heels to school sometimes, dresses. I used to like do long extensions, never left my house without makeup. We were a house where like you don't leave your house in pajamas. My Nana never wore denim a day in her life. She wore a pantsuit every single day until like the day she died.
No way.
Yeah. So my mom was very like, and my mom's English. Oh yeah, I'm English. So I was born in England. So
What?
very, yeah. I didn't become
what part of England?
Kettering.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I got my American citizenship in 2019, literally just because I wanted to not vote for Trump. I was like, I'm getting my citizenship. I'm getting it done now.
Wow,
So,
that's crazy. So did you live in England for a while before you moved?
Nah, just until I was 6.
Oh, but you got the document, which is great. Yeah,
I got the document. Yeah. And I can get it for my kids too, so they can go there. So I'm going to work on that later on down the road.
Very cool.
But yeah, so my mom would like dress me up and I was like, okay, this is what being a girl is. And then I had kids. And then when you hit your 20s, you're like supposed to be learning who you are and all of that crap. But I was a parent. And so I wasn't really figuring out who I was. I was just wearing like tank tops every day and like parenting and feeling like really lost and alone and confused. And it really wasn't until like 4 years ago when I started on TikTok and learning about like gender construct to where I was like, oh my God. So like, I call it my girl mask. I like being girly. Like I'm a girl. I know I'm a girl. I don't feel like a boy. I know I'm not a boy, but I don't feel like I'm in like the box of womanhood. Like I feel it's more like androgyny. Like, yeah, sometimes I do kind of want to put on my hot girl mask, but most of the time I just feel like I'm existing. And a lot of autistic people feel the same way, where like the gender binary construct, just, I don't grasp it. I don't understand why it matters. It makes no sense to me. Like I understand why it's needed in society and why we use it in society, but I don't feel like I fit in that box. And so...
Yeah, and you know, and you said an interesting point. You know, a lot of people with, you know, on the spectrum kind of feel that sometimes you feel like a third person to yourself, you know, and you're trying to figure out like who this person is. And like when people are like, oh, you're this guy and you do this and you're this is your box, and you're just like, wait a minute, like I don't even feel that sense of personhood, like personhood. And I know this is gonna sound crazy, but I can relate to that. I don't know why, but like especially when I was in treatment, like I literally was just like, I didn't feel like a human being for like the first like 6 weeks. I just felt like I was like watching this guy struggling and suffering, and you know, so I didn't even feel like Johnny at that time. And so, you know, individualism and you know, personality and all that stuff aside, you know, it's just a feeling that, you know, I don't fit. And then if you don't let people express that and you're like, oh no, you do fit and you blah, 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 then you're not understanding anything about, you know, identity, but most importantly about mental health, you know, and, for somebody like me, it's just like, listen, whatever the fuck people want to be, I don't give a shit.
Just let people vibe. Just vibe.
Right. Like most people, especially people like you know, most of the people who are, so obviously I know a lot of people who would say this woman is
this woman's crazy. She doesn't know she's a girl. Like, I understand.
Yeah. And then I'll be like, okay, calm down. So do you think that somebody who thinks that way is mentally ill? And they'll be like, absolutely. And I'll be like, okay, well then let's just stop there.
I got that on my comments 2 days ago on Instagram. They were like comorbidities like autism and anxiety, people like you who don't even know who they are. It's all connected. And I'm like, you're choosing not to understand.
You're so close. It's
you're like making the conscious decision to not get this at this point.
It's like you almost get it, but no, you know, and that's something that I think is awesome, because you've come into rooms where I was and been definitely the only person who would ever even consider themselves to be non-binary or even okay with the thought that could be something that you could be.
Yeah.
And you just carry yourself so well. You're like, listen, I'm going to do me and blah, blah, blah. And you're one of the strongest people I know, but I want to bring up something. And that's what happens on the WhiteFlag podcast. If you're okay with it. No, you're a human being. So I follow you, and you're like on Instagram, you're like the first, or on Instagram and on TikTok, you're like the first one that comes up in my suggestion things. But you said, I think it was Instagram, you said that you hate yourself, or that you dislike. It was like a post.
Nobody hates me as much as I hate myself.
Yes. Tell me about that a little bit, because I can relate to that a little bit too. People are like, God, you're such an arrogant asshole. And I'm like, yeah, I hate me too.
I hate me too. It's funny you said that, because somebody DM'd, it was on TikTok. Somebody DMs me. Yeah. I mean, I think I put it on Instagram stories too, but someone DM'd me and she was like, you hate yourself. What do you mean? And I was like, it's all a mask. I hate being here. I hate it here.
Right. We are so all the stuff that you're hearing about, the non-binary, the gender fluid, the TikTok and all this other stuff, that is just so that we can feel the least amount of pain while we're here.
Absolutely. I think that's one big reason I love TikTok. And don't get me wrong, when people are being fucking mean about me on Reddit, it hurts my feelings sometimes, okay? And I get in my feelings for a minute, and then Reddit. I don't do it on purpose. I was Googling to see if something got leaked on Google, and then I saw a Reddit thread about me pop up, and I was like, I'm going to read that. And my husband was like, you should not. You should not. And I did it anyway, and I regret it wholeheartedly. But I just, like, I already hate being here. And I know that other people hate being here, and I've been doing this long enough to where, like, I don't mind getting online and speaking my truth, because I know that, like, other people feel this way, and other people are experiencing life the same way that I am. And I don't mind being like a bridge to some form of solidarity. Like, I'm cool with that. Yeah. I'm not going anywhere because I have kids, and I don't trust any fucker to take care of my kids. Not one goddamn person can raise my kids like I can. I'm not going anywhere, but I fucking hate it here, and I will admit it.
Yeah. And that's, and so there's a difference between being like, I'm fucking suffering, I'm here, I'm going to gut this thing out. I have, there are aspects of what I'm doing that I like. Yeah. But, and it's not suicidal, it's different. It's different. Yeah. What I read something the other day about this thing called passive suicide. And this is me right here. I look for scenarios that are dangerous, like a guy like holding up a convenience store. If that happened around me, he would get fucking tackled to the ground. I don't care if he got it off or whatever. And, just people who are like, I'm okay with leaving this earth naturally. That's not in any way, shape, or form, something that I'm concerned about. Whenever this is over, don't cry. I've suffered a lot, and and there's just not a lot of people talk about it enough, because you're supposed to, like, these shirts that say like love life and life is amazing.
Toxic positivity. I can't do it.
And the reality of the situation is there are people here who are severely struggling with their own emotions. And the majority of the time, it's because of something that they went through, or that somebody else, a third person, put them through. And so you've got these people who have been through these horrible things, and then they're like, just like you and just like me, like, I'm indifferent. Like, I'm okay if I'm not here anymore. People are like, oh my God, you don't love life and this, that, and the other. So I always go back to because people don't understand. Like, when you talk about mental health, they're like, oh, you got spanked, or, oh, you saw something. Oh, I got a friend in the military, which is horrible, with what they go through. But the reality of the situation is it's a lot darker than people think. And when I was in treatment, there was a guy who was forced to have sex with his sister for several years. And they were both on the spectrum. And after this was in Ohio, when I went to treatment in Ohio, but after they grew up and they started talking about it to their friends and families, they found out that the dad found out about it. And I think he burned the house down with all the videotapes in it. So those two people are now living life. And if you heard them say, like, God, this is just like the most painful shit ever. Like, I don't want to, I'm not somebody who wants to be here, but I'm going to stick around, you wouldn't roll your eyes at that. No. You'd be like, that was horrible. But for the rest of the, unless it's like that extreme, but it's the environment that can create all sorts of haywire in your chemical, brain and in the makeup of what you're experiencing on this earth. So I just wanted to put that point out there, because people don't understand. It gets a lot darker than you think, and it's a lot more painful. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, I want to stay on you for a little while. So let's stop talking about me. So when you say that, you're wearing all these masks, and so let's just say me and Ollie get taken to a new planet and we get to be our fucking selves. What does that look like for you? What kind of masks are not there? What do you get to become?
I don't know. And you know what? I think about this all the time, especially because you know how where the Ollie Rose came from, right?
No.
Oh.
Well, I got short-term memory. Dave probably told me.
No, you know what? I think I might have, but I'd also short-term memory. So I only had a first and a last name. My parents never gave me a middle name. I got married to my husband. I needed to change my last name to his. And when I got my American citizenship, you can do a name change in that process because you're going to the court. Okay. And so when I did it, I was like, am I allowed to add a name? And they were like, if you want to.
No
and I was
way.
like, okay. Yeah. So I gave myself a middle name. My middle name is Olivia Rose. And
that is awesome.
Thank you. Everybody that I was telling was like, this is really dumb. Why would you give yourself a middle name? My mom thought it was silly. And I was like, I want to rebrand my life. Like, the name Lauren is connected to so much trauma from like my mom and shit that I was like desperate to get away from it. And I didn't want to give myself just like a nickname. I wanted it to be like permanent. And so then a few months later, I made the Ollie Rose TikTok account. And then after that, I've been awesome. Ollie Rose ever since. I've been
awesome. Yeah. No, I was always the one in the family that needed the separate stuffed animal. If you're going to get 3, don't get me the same. I need to be different. I just always different. Yeah. I just always felt like that. I wasn't like this. I wasn't like other people. I don't know how to explain it other than, and by saying I'm not like other people, that means I'm not like the person you think I am. Because people think that I'm, you're this middle child, and you're a lawyer, and you're this guy, and blah,
you're not in the box that they assume that you're in because of who you are on the outside.
Right, exactly. And so I can totally relate to that. And I mean, that's where the Johnny comes from, right? Like my name's John David, it's Jonathan. And I don't know who that person is. Yeah. Johnny is Johnny Carson, Johnny Nash, Johnny Knoxville, Johnny Cash. And that's, I don't know why I identify with that more, but I like it more.
That's how I feel about Ollie. I'm like, I don't know. People will be like, do you like being called Ollie or Lauren more? And I'm like, I truly don't know. I don't think I care, but whoever Ollie is as a person is who I identify with more than like.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
Lauren's got some shit.
Well, that's good though, that, that you were given that opportunity and kind of a way to, kind of clean slate a little bit, move on and start making your own identity. That's really cool. So when is the last time that you talked to your family?
The last time I talked to my mom was Mother's Day, 3.5 years ago. So
I literally thought you were like, yeah. So in May, I sent her a card. No. 3.5 years. Oh my God.
It was like 3.5, almost 4 years ago. Mother's Day is actually the day that my oldest was born. He was born on Mother's Day. It changes every 5 years. So it was my son's 5th birthday. There's so much story context. So also around this time, my husband and I were going to get divorced. Bad communication. We met 19 going on 20. We had 2 kids. He was working in Colorado for a year. I was parenting by myself for 14 months. There was a lack of like shared parenting. There's lots of like misogyny and patriarchy and the whole like woman does woman things, man does man things.
No, I'm from South Carolina. We don't do that there.
So I eventually was like, you know what? I think you need to focus on your relationship with your kids and we need to be done. So around the same time, he was coming back from Colorado after being gone for 14 months and us freshly deciding like, okay, we're just going to platonically live together and co-parent. And my mother was very adamant about coming to visit on Mother's Day, which was like 2 weeks after my husband or soon to be ex-husband was getting home. And it was also our oldest's 5th birthday. And it just was not the time to have like in-laws in our tiny apartment. And I tried to like sway the conversation to be like, maybe it could be, but she was very adamant about it. And if you argue with her, it's the end of your fucking life. So she came. I had also been alone for so long that I ended up with a thyroid condition, the stress and all that. Yeah, so I have Hashimoto's. My thyroid looks like Swiss cheese. Turns out stress can induce those things.
Yes. Stress can do a lot of things.
And childhood trauma apparently is linked to thyroid problems.
Oh, geez.
So my mom came to visit. I was very like fatigued. I couldn't feed myself. I was barely I was keeping the kids alive, but not myself. Mm-hmm. So Kaliko we were getting divorced, but he was waiting on me hand and foot and like feeding me and stuff. And my mom was expecting us to be doing these like grand gestures. Like, we're so glad you're here, but going through like everything we're going through. And I wanted to celebrate my son's birthday, not Mother's Day. So that day we go outside so I can take like candid photos of all of us together. And then her and I got into an argument about something really stupid. And at that point I was like, I've had enough of this. I'm done. You need to go. So she drove back to Utah. She had just arrived that morning and then left. And then she asked for the candid pictures of her and the boys. And I sent them to her and I told her those were the only photos she was ever going to have with them ever again. And to cherish them because she was never going to see them ever again. And that was it. The last time I spoke to her, I sent her a text message a couple years ago because she used to make fake accounts on TikTok to troll my comment section. And I texted her and I was like, hey, I know this is you.
What?
Yeah. Her username would be like, I'm watching you or something weird. And then she would leave comments in the same way that she's a boomer. So she texts very specifically. And I was like, this is my mom. This is quite literally. And it stopped once I called her out and texted her. She never responded, but she quit doing it. So yeah, that was the last time I talked to her.
Yeah, no trauma, no parenting issues. So like you just hear something like that and you're like, God, she was in charge of a little girl at one point. You know what I mean?
You know what? There are so many little trauma stories of her, but I think the worst one was when she told me that I was either going to get kicked out or I had to put my dog down. And so she made me put my dog down in order for me to be able to live with her still. And like that alone is probably, that alone is like enough trauma. I had just turned 18, like a week prior.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And she was like, hey, I'm getting a new apartment. You can come, but you have to go get the dog put down. Otherwise you can't come. And I was like, what do you mean? And so none of my friends could take her. I couldn't do. And so she was an old dog. She was 18, but she was fine. She had at least like 3 or 4 more years. Like she wasn't in a place where it was like for her health.
Yeah. And you're a little girl. I mean, even though you're 18, like you're still a little girl.
Freshly turned 18, like 18-year-olds are children.
Yeah.
And then I got back to the apartment and she's in her room like crying as if the dog had died from natural causes and like wanting to cuddle and shit. And I'm like, are you fucking serious? This is wild.
Yeah. Well, that is insane. I mean, so then you can kind of, you can kind of imagine what the rest of the childhood was like. But yeah, I mean, and you're just so self-aware. And you're very intelligent. But I want to talk about another thing that I saw on your social media that's incredibly relatable, especially to me.
Are you bringing up the plane situation?
I don't want to bring up the plane situation wholly. I just want to know, and I think a lot, because I can relate to this, and I know that a lot of people listening can. Your response to this bitter lady who is just so out of touch with reality and so harmful, and that she's your mom.
She's always like that. I was triggered 100% because she reminded me of my mom.
Exactly. She reminded me of a lot of people that I've known in my life. She's texting her fucking husband that I know exactly, who that guy is, and they hate you and all this shit. How do you feel because you got, you talked about your social media. So you got asked
I got
to leave
mixed reviews.
Plane. Yeah, you got asked to leave the plane. So, but yeah, I mean, in one way or another, they were like, you were going to give you an option. But at what point do you say, all right, I'm going to protect my peace and my mental health, and I'm just going to let this crazy, bitter lady, just like talk shit about me. I know how hard it is, but if you can't do it, if you can't, Miss Ollie, and all your intelligent and all your shit, You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at.
If I can't keep quiet
yeah, like
about
how
it.
the fuck are the rest of us going to be able to ignore that hate? Because that's the healthiest
I got
way, I guess.
so much. I got mixed. Okay, so for context, just so
go
everybody
ahead.
knows, let me just fucking give the context.
It's a great story, by the way.
So Johnny flies me to Myrtle Beach for free, and it was like $200 to upgrade my flights to first class. And you know what? I had an extra couple $100 that I probably shouldn't have spent, but I was like, I got long legs. I don't want to sit in economy. I'm going to treat myself. I got kids. I never get time away. So flying first class to Myrtle Beach was great. Then I fly to Charlotte, and there was like 3 or 4 flight delays prior to Charlotte. So I finally get to Charlotte. I'm on a completely different flight, but I'm still in first class. I get on the plane. I have my hat on. I have my headphones on. I'm wearing like sweatpants. I know I don't look like someone that should have been in the first class seat. I'm highly aware of that.
I never do. I look like a DJ. I look like a famous DJ in first class.
See, I feel you. And so I go and I sit down next to this woman, this boomer-aged blonde lady with her reading glasses on and her cell phone. And I set my bag down and I look over and I'm like, hi. Because I have anxiety. I fucking hate flying.
That was your first mistake. How dare you acknowledge somebody else?
Shouldn't have fucking acknowledged her.
Yeah.
Next mistake. I have a mask on when I fly because I ain't fucking with COVID. So I had my mask on too. Obviously, she was not cool with that. And then I pulled.
She was not cool with your own personal choice.
She was not cool with it. I pulled Clorox wipes out or Lysol wipes to wipe the chairs down because planes are fucking gross.
They give them to you. They give them to you on the plane when you get on.
So if you ask them, and I already have it, so I'm wiping shit down, and she literally moved her body because she's in the fucking seat next to the window. Yeah. She shifts her body away from me even more. She's already like 2 feet away. Now she's like pushing herself into the fucking wall. And I'm like, okay, I'm texting my husband and I'm like, I don't think this fucking lady next to me likes me. She's over there going like the boomer fucking sigh of disdain. Like that's what she's giving me. And so I'm like, I am not comfortable. I don't think she likes me. Like she's eyeing me. She's side-eyeing me. I can see it. I'm looking at her, like looking at me in peripherals. Then she shifts her phone so I can see the screen. And so I look over and I pulled my phone out because I got bad eyes and I took a picture of her fucking shit. She saw me take a picture too. She watched me do it. And I took a picture, and on the picture, she said, on the text, whoever she was texting, she said, I don't know if it's a boy or a girl who's sitting next to me or something like that. And the person responded to her and said, don't ask. And then I take another picture because she starts texting something else. And she said, it just wiped the seats down with a Lysol wipe. She called me an it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm texting my husband and I'm like, I think I'm about to get kicked off this flight. And he was like, don't. And I'm like, I can't sit here for the next 5 hours next to this woman and feel like she doesn't like me. The lady, the stewardess comes down. She's like, do you guys want anything to drink? And I was like, I'm cool, just water. And she goes, a Bloody Mary. And I'm like, oh, great. Yeah. I really want to sit next to this drunk woman. So I sit there, I think, and I'm like, okay, I'm either going to get kicked out or I'm going to ask to leave. So I take my mask off, I take my headset off, and I lean in very close to her. And I say, just so you know, I'm a fucking girl. And she went, oh, really? Are you? And I was like, yes, I can like see you talking. And then we get into an argument. And I'm like, I know you think I look like a hooligan and I don't deserve to be here. I have a business. I paid for this seat with my business, which like, yeah, you paid for the first part, but like I could have, you know what I mean?
You deserve to be there.
I still paid to be up there.
Trust me.
Then she starts fucking bickering back at me and I'm like, oh my God. I said to her, I was like, you remind me of my mom. And she was like, yeah, I did. And she was like, oh, she must not like you either. And I'm like,
that was it. Shotgun trigger.
So then, but then the person in front of me calls the flight attendant over and she's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this lady's being a bigot. She's confused.
Who called the flight attendant over?
Somebody in front of us. Because I said, fuck. And so the flight attendant comes over. She's like, what's going on? And I'm like, this lady's being a bigot. She doesn't like that. She doesn't know if I'm a boy or a girl. Like she's texting. And the lady was like, well, she's reading my texts. And like, yeah, I was. Because you were like exuding microaggressions at me. So then the flight attendant goes and gets the management of the flight attendant. I don't remember their fucking thing, but he calls me to the front and he's like, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what's going on? And I was like, that lady's being a bitch. And he was like, okay, with the words. And I'm like, no, you're right. She's being a bigot. She is not okay with the fact that I have short hair and apparently look like a boy. She called me an it. And he was like, okay, so are you going to sit down and act like an adult? And I was like, are you going to talk to her too? And he was like, no, because you're the one that dropped the swear words. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I want off the plane then. Like, I'm not going to sit here if you're not going to talk to her, because she I know I shouldn't have said anything. I understand that. But like, she was making me uncomfortable. She was making me so uncomfortable with all of her body movements and her body language and the way that she was like staring at me and the fact that she's fucking talking about me. And so I told him, I was like, okay, I want off the flight. And he was like, if I let you off, you can't get back on. And I was like, yeah, I'm aware of that. I want off of the flight. So I went and grabbed my stuff and then I left. And then they gave me another ticket for the next morning.
But the reality of the situation is that lady probably got off the plane, got picked up by the guy who she was texting, who may or may not be her elderly husband. They went back to her house and they poured a bowl of oatmeal and they didn't say a fucking word to each other.
Yeah.
And then she went to the TV and turned on whatever channel that you can imagine that she's watching. And her husband went to sleep and nobody texted her and nobody called her and nobody checked on her and nobody gives a shit that she's alive. And the reality of the situation is she said that because she hasn't gone through her process of learning that people can be different and that people can also be hurt by you pointing out things and treating people a certain way. And the fact that she's at that level in her life, that elderly, and she's still that way, she's never going to change. It wouldn't matter if the guy came up and said, you have to apologize, blah, blah, blah.
No.
Doesn't matter. This lady is never going to change. And the funniest part about the whole thing to me, the most telling thing, is that the guy responded back and said, don't ask. Meaning, we know you're a fucking bigot jerk. Yeah. So don't do what you normally do, Tabitha
exactly.
Or Betty or whatever.
That's so telling. She looked like a Betty. That's so telling. And a bunch of people were like, she's not going to care that you said anything. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I would have thought about that for the rest of my life had I sat on that plane and just sat there next to somebody that just absolutely hates my fucking existence and didn't say a word. Like, I would have thought about that forever. And I have so much comfort knowing that I swore at her and called her a cunt while I walked off of the plane.
So that's interesting. So for me, like, I have Crohn's disease, I have PTSD, I have nerve issues in my legs and in my feet. So I can't sit in the back of the plane, especially now I've gained a little bit of weight. Shout out to Sarah Quill. But I totally can see it happening, every single plane flight. Somebody sits next to somebody and we're from different parts of the world. And then you analyze it. If you sat there and like you did, I mean, you're like a fucking private investigator, really. I wish I really had you with my law firm.
I'm so conscious of body language because of my mom. Like constantly, I'm constantly on edge, like reading and picking up. I know I'm autistic. I miss social cues sometimes, like if you're being sarcastic, but like I can read body language like it's written in front of me. Like if I can tell the second I walk into a room, like who's judging me, who doesn't like me, who is uncomfortable by my existence. Like, and so I like, that's all I feel. That's all I feel is that shit from people.
Yeah, no. And like I told you before I started talking, I was like, this was me before. I was the Facebook king. I would write, like, I would analyze everything and I would put like all my lawyer legalese and there would be 1,000 comments and there would everything I had in it, I needed to. And for some reason I did feel better after I, kind of dumped everything in my opinion. But now that I'm so, now that I went through what I went through, I mean, I've been so close to dying like multiple times and so close to dying in my own hands multiple times, for some reason, I still acknowledge it. It still hurts, but I just kind of like, God, I just hope Sia doesn't, because Sia will say something if she sees it. But so for me, if I would have said something, I'd have been kicked up, because you went through hell after you got off the plane. I mean, you were fucking Didn't you have to like stay the night? Or
I stayed the night in the airport. Kaliko, my husband, was like, "Are we going to get you a hotel?" And I was like, "I'm literally not paying for a hotel. I'm going to sit in here until," because it was 7 p.m. my flight. My next flight the next morning was 7 a.m. or 8 or something.
So you stayed the night.
I stayed the night. I sat in the rocking chairs that are in that airport, and I listened to like
Charlotte. Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah. I sat in that little area the whole night and like listened to audiobooks. The second the Cinnabon opened up, I went and got myself a Cinnabon, and I was like, all right, I've endured my punishment for opening my mouth. I've paid my dues.
But at that point when you're eating the Cinnabon, you're like, I wouldn't change it, right?
I wouldn't change it.
Oh my God, I knew it. I knew you were going to say that.
I wouldn't change it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. I don't feel bad for saying something. And there was so many people online who were like, you need to shut your mouth. Like, you caused this. You're instigating this for views. You're instigating this for attention.
Definitely
and like,
not.
That's literally not what happened. I was uncomfortable, and other people were like, life is about being uncomfortable. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm not going to put up with it if it's a bigot. Like,
yeah,
being uncomfortable.
So the reality of the situation is, I think who you are and, you know, how you experience the world through, you know, on the spectrum and through ADHD and through everything else that you've been through, it makes you more uncomfortable not to say something than it would for you to do what I, you know, traditionally I now would do, or other people are like, oh my God, why didn't she just do it that way? Mm-hmm. But that's how deep mental health is. You know what I mean? Like like for me, it would have cost me a month of comfort to have to stay in a airport overnight. I mean, I would have been in bed.
Stayed awake the whole time too. I was awake for 12 hours. Oh yeah. No, I couldn't do that. I got kids. I did sleep the whole next day. Khalid, my husband was like, you sleep. And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm so tired. And he was like, no, you're fine.
Yeah. And so for me, I would, no matter what, I would have been like, I'm never saying anything again. Like, you know, but the reality is, I just wanted to point out to the people who are listening here, that's how different mental health makes us and our actions. Mm-hmm. And you know what I mean? So it's not that Ollie Rose is a B word instigating, or, you know, somebody who just can't keep her mouth closed. It is the feeling that she would have afterwards, and then perpetual when another Betty is next to her in the grocery store. And, you know, and I mean, I think that's just as dangerous as not saying anything, right?
Yeah, well, I do too. And there are plenty of times where I keep my mouth shut. I keep my mouth shut frequently. Like, there are always people out in the community saying things they shouldn't be, but there are certain situations where I'm like, no. Yeah.
You're in like a porta potty sized seat next to someone.
Yeah, I'm next to someone on a tin can with wings. Like, I'm not sitting next to this for 5 hours. I am not.
No, and I saw your responses to your people. I'm not an influencer by any means. I get like one DM. It's always from Sia, and she's always just sending me random. That's my wife, by the way. She's always just sending me random, you know, things to buy her or me or whatever. So I never get DMs, but it was clear from your DMs that, you know, people responded to, and they had a big opinion about like what they would have done or what they would not have done. But so I kind of wanted to talk about it and clear it up, that like, you know, it's almost as if it's not really a choice for somebody.
It wasn't. It didn't feel like it was a choice. I felt like I had to say something. But you know what's so cool is, like, while there were so many people who were like, you need to keep your mouth shut, you're an instigator, there were so many. I had so many comments and DMs from people who were like, I don't know if I would have ever had the courage. I would have sat there uncomfortable. Like, thank you for showing me that, like, it's okay to advocate for yourself. Like, thank you for proving that advocacy is important. Like, there were people that like don't have the courage to say anything who were like, okay, maybe now I would have the courage to say something, like seeing what it was that you said, or seeing you go through the consequences of saying something by leaving the plane. And like that makes it worth it.
And then it gets deep. Like, what if you would have never seen it? And like, how many other times do you not see that? And like, you know, like, I mean, I can have conversations about like human interaction and reaction and connectivity and all that stuff for days and days on end, but it just comes down to one fucking thing. And that is every action, reaction, everything that we do right or wrong, everything that we are processing appropriately or inappropriately, it just all makes sense when you know the whole story.
Yeah.
That when you know that lady's whole story, it'll all make sense. She was raised by some like racist tobacco farmer in South Carolina, like my dad. Like my dad.
Plantation. Yeah, absolutely.
I would say owned a plantation. Let's not give Betty that much credit that her family was some G. I don't want to do that. But the reality of the situation is like we're all suffering. Betty is suffering more than you. I promise you tonight, Betty is staring at a single dish in the sink. Her husband's not talking to her. He's watching the Detroit Lions tonight. And she's suffering. And if we were...
That's shit my husband and I talk about because so my husband and I have a podcast that we haven't made an episode for in 2 years, but don't worry, it's coming back. But we were
shout it out. People
it's called Unpack It with Ollie.
Nice.
And it was the first whole like season is when him and I started our like platonic like marriage relationship of co-parenting and like deconstructing the patriarchy and misogyny within our marriage. And so like I have an awesome marriage. My husband and I are fucking awesome. Like we have gotten to like, this is better than when I met him 10 years ago. And that was an awesome time. But like, I think about people like that and people that didn't get to deconstruct those things and are living like that lady is a B word 100 effing percent. And I don't like her, but I do understand that like she's probably got hella trauma from people around her, and she probably is in a marriage where she can only do womanly things, and I am liberated and she isn't, and she'll probably die never feeling liberated. And you know what? That sucks for her, and that's her punishment for being an asshole. But like, but I understand that like people act like this because of the trauma and because of the way that they were raised. I'm lucky because I was given the resources to change.
Yeah. No, that's it. And, you know, it's just so crazy. Like at the end of the day, what it boils down to is we're all struggling, we're all suffering. And if we can connect with each other and somehow understand each other, then the world is just a more tolerable place. And the only way, that's what WhiteFlag does. I mean, we simplify the process of finding people and connecting them so that you can not only feel like you're not alone and you're comfortable and that other people have been through the same mental health issues, struggles, and challenges you. But eventually somebody from, you know, North Dakota is going to be able to chat with somebody from Japan, and they're going to have the same, right. And they're going to have the same issues, the exact same shit, you know, that you're going through North Dakota, the same part. And then it just makes everything so much more harmonious.
Yes. And the thing I love about this app too is like there are people from all different walks of life, different political values, different religions, and it's cool because it's anonymous. Like you're not going to know who you're talking to. And I really do hope that like people who aren't as tolerant for others in the community, I hope that when they use this app, they like learn tolerance from the people that they're speaking to, like because they're gaining compassion from other people.
You know, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is for people to just realize like there's a moment in their life. There's a moment in Betty's life where she was led to that comment, and it was probably, here's how I imagine it. This is why I was a lawyer, because I could tell stories that aren't really true and make them sound like true. But Betty was trying to get her husband, George, to notice her, and he wasn't noticing her. And this was, you know, in 2013, 14, and 15. And so she started watching his same news programs and realizing, you know, what end of the political spectrum he was on. And now their biggest thing is Antifa. And she wanted to let him know that she could call out a possible Antifa member. Now they're bonding. The whole thing is about her bonding with George.
Yeah, absolutely.
The text was
absolutely.
That was it. Is she was trying to get closer to some fucking bigot. So you know, that's the right word for somebody who judges somebody by the way they look. But that's her motive for what she did, was to get love and acceptance from George.
No, that's where it is. By hating other people, she's hoping she gets love in the home. Exactly. Like that's why most people who don't like other people, like people who are bigots, like that's what's happening. And you notice that when you're in like parenting Facebook groups. I was in those for a really long time. A lot of wives who hate on other mothers and who hate on other parents are usually doing it because their husband is not giving them what they need, like emotionally, and they're being treated a certain way. And so they feel like they can connect to their husband by also hating women when their husband is doing the woman hating all on her. And so I understand like why people pick on me, because they're trying to find acceptance within whoever it is that they're around.
Listen, you preach it to the choir, civil rights attorney in South Carolina. I mean, I had like so many people that were like, we just wish you weren't here. If this guy wasn't here, nobody's calling out the police. This guy's, I mean, I spoke at rallies. I won't mention any acronyms that were there, but I've I've spoken at rallies and, done what I need to do. And I felt so much hate, much hate. And then you meet the people that are talking about, because I would read comments. This is back when I, was trying to, please everybody. And that's anxiety is like, you got to please it. Everybody's got to be happy with you. If everybody's not happy with you, somebody's going to plot against you. Somebody's going to plot against you. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
I feel that on a daily basis.
Oh yeah. And you just try to people please everybody. If somebody's like, I have an issue with you. Let's talk about it next month. You're like, no, we're going to deal with that right now. What is the issue? Let's talk about it and all this other stuff. And so, for me, eventually, I realized that if it wasn't the civil rights stuff, then it was the fact that I married a Brazilian. If it was, people were mad about that. I got hate. Like, why did you find an American girl? Like you're just trying to show off. Like, and then the reality of the situation is the microcosm that I entered into when I went to treatment, the place that I went to, and we sat down. There was tons of Miss Ollies there. There was a couple of Johnnies there. There was a couple of, veterans in there. And, there was, everything that you could possibly imagine. But each person in there was hurting so badly that they understood that if I'm there, I'm hurting too.
Yeah.
And there was literally people who were wearing superhero costumes because they had such identity issues. Yeah, I was in the place where you go if you're the worst of the worst and you're dealing with the most pain. That's where I was. And when I left that place, I promised myself that when I created WhiteFlag, because I came up with the idea when I was looking for an app like WhiteFlag, and there just wasn't anything else out there that was this authentic, where there's nobody training you, and there's a bullshit patronizing language. There's no, hearts and likes and retweets. I knew that we had to create something out there that was just, analogous to walking into a peer support group. And if you do that, then you also have to be ready for the peer support group to be filled with the same people. That was in the place where I felt such strong love and connection and empathy. And so that's why we made WhiteFlag. And that's why we got Ollie on the podcast. That's why we're having Nate Boyer, who's a, Green Beret on the podcast.
I love Nate. I
know. And everybody's just so different, but if you go into WhiteFlag, it's the same thing as being in the place that I was, but virtually. So it's just people from all different walks of life, and nobody has any clue that they're talking to somebody who looks like, could be a boy, could be a girl.
Yep.
It doesn't matter because we're all connected through pain.
We're all struggling.
And so, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast, is because you represent a major part of the individuals who are on the app currently. They look, walk, talk, feel, they respond to Betty's just like you do. And I wanted them to know, Miss Ollie, gets something out of the app. She's part of our company. By the way, all that Miss Ollie is going to do is become more and more and more involved in the company. So
I really hope so. I keep bugging Dave about it. I'm like, I would like to be here permanently, please.
Yeah, no, trust me. We're not letting you. Even if you were like, I just don't have a whole lot of time, I would be like, Dave, let's come up with this.
I'll make the time. The time.
I'm not worried about it at all. You are you're a joy to be around. You hate yourself, but you also are like the most confident person in the fact that you are somebody who's okay with hating yourself.
Yeah, man, you just got to come to terms with it.
Yeah.
Then go on with yourself.
Yeah. And, I really do care about you a lot. I view you after spending so much time with you in person, like as a friend and somebody that I could talk to about things outside of WhiteFlag. And so I really do appreciate that. And you're wonderful. Your message is wonderful. Your followers are wonderful to an extent. I know sometimes you get Reddit. But yeah, I can't wait to see, what's next for you, not only in, your life and, with what you're doing with all this stuff. Cause you're literally an entrepreneur. You just made
I do so many things. Oh yeah.
Show them.
This is God. Lil the Canicorn. This is 2.0. Yeah. So the first one I ever made, hold on. She's back here. This was the first one.
Oh my God.
He started out as a sticker. And so then I was like, a bunch of my followers were like, she needs to be a plush. And I was like, yeah,
Yes.
you guys going to buy that? And they were like, yeah. So I was like, okay.
Yeah. So how many did you make and sell?
I pre-sold out of 1,000 before production was finished.
Oh my God. How much is it? How much is one of those things?
That one was $45 plus shipping.
Oh my God. I'm no mathematician, but that sounds like almost 50 grand.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Wow. See, and I mean, like, and it comes from your mind, your creativity, and like, I mean, you're just special. You fascinate me, Miss Ollie. And it's such like a cool thing too. Are you gonna send me one? If I send
you one of the new ones, I'll send you one of the new ones. This one bought my house.
Oh my God.
This one's emo corn. They're gonna be turned into this version too. But this one I created. We had to move, and I needed money for a down payment for a house. And the lender was like, "You got to make it, credible on paper." And I was like, "I got you." And so I pre-sold 500 of those before production was done, and then I was able to buy my house.
Fascinating, man. Fascinating.
And then I have a business.
Yeah, you are something else. You think that we're not going to roll you into WhiteFlag and be like, okay, how can we do better? How can we do more? How can we?
I got you.
Yeah. So, no, I'm just so grateful for you. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for WhiteFlag.
Thank you for letting me be a part of it.
Oh yeah. For people in pain, for our community, for the people who are following you. I really do care about you a lot, and I hope that wherever we go next, you and I are there together in some way, because I'll feel much more better if I have one of my homies there. So,
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you.
I don't know when this thing's going to air, but if you guys enjoyed the show, if you guys enjoyed the concept, if you guys enjoyed me or Miss Ollie or whatever you want to support, you can go to our website, whiteflagapp.com. We are live on the Start Engine campaign right now, which is a crowdfunding platform owned by Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank. We've already raised over $60,000. It's only been a couple of weeks. This is not money from major angel investors or VCs. We already raised $2.5 million from them. This is from regular people like you, like me, underdogs who have never invested anything, never really been able to be a part of something this big, something bigger than themselves. We open it up on Start Engine so that you could join us, so that you could be included, so that you could take the ride and be a part of something that, Miss Ollie is a part of. And so go to Start Engine's website, look for the WhiteFlag app campaign. It's a $250 minimum investment. That's the lowest I could get it. I argued it down from $500, but go buy some shares, take the ride with us, be a part of our company. And and you'll get some cool merchandise. You get to come to some parties, and you'll get to come to some events, and you'll get to meet everybody on the team. And it's going to be really, really fun and awesome. But the reality of the situation is, we're only a year away from WhiteFlag being in 12 countries. And when that happens, really? We believe that. And when that happens, we think that, it'll be a common household name. And instead of Betty sitting next to Miss Ollie on the flight being a jerk, Betty's going to have WhiteFlag in her phone, and Miss Ollie's going to be like, well, I'm an owner of the company that you currently use to talk to other people who hate themselves.
I can't wait so that when people are like, she needs to get a real job, I can be like, I have one now.
Oh my God. Are you kidding me? You already have a real job. I think
well, they don't count. They don't count this as a real job. Unless I'm working for somebody else on someone else's payroll, they don't consider it a real job.
Well, then I ain't ever going to have a real job, because I don't get along with, I see things a certain way, and I'm like you, like I'm not always right, but for some reason I follow my heart, my vision. And so it's been wonderful talking to you guys. If you enjoyed the episode, if you like Miss Ollie or me or whatever it is, and you feel like you can relate, go download the WhiteFlag app. It's for free in the Google Play on Android and Apple App Store for iPhone and everything else. Like our social media, we got a great social media team out there. Brave Dave's on that as well. And follow us on all our stuff. You can see our blogs. You can see other podcasts that are with similar people like Miss Ollie. We've had doctors on here. We've had veterans on here. We've had mushroom people who've used mushrooms on here to describe the experience. So we're going to continue bringing you guys, different perspectives from the mental health fight and the crisis side, especially people on the front lines. And at the end of the day, I want you guys to remember and know one thing, and one thing's for sure: we are all in this together, and we are all alike because we are all suffering and we are all experiencing life, through the lens of somebody who has a conscience. And for those of you out there who may say, well, I don't deal with mental health issues and blah, 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 somebody's going to die that you love. Then you're going to grieve. Then you're going to understand what grief and depression and all that good stuff is like. So it's probably better for you guys to, start getting
so abrupt. Like someone's going to die.
Someone's going to die. Well, I mean, it's true. Like everybody's like, I don't have any news. I'm like, what happens when your husband dies? He would never. Well, somebody's going to die first eventually. And then you're going to have a normal human reaction. You're going to grieve. You're going to be sad, and depression from grieving, prolonged depression from grieving is a mental health issue that affects almost everybody who goes through losing somebody who's extremely close to them, especially if it's your person. So when Betty loses George, she'll be on White Flag. And that day, me and Miss Ollie will be there to make sure that she's okay and that she knows she's not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounded sarcastic out of my mouth, but I promise it was genuine.
No, I just love you and your reaction. So, so anyway, guys, go follow us, leave us a review, and go check out Miss Ollie Rose on TikTok and on Instagram and wherever else she goes. Even if you don't always agree with everything that she says or stands for, she has a unique perspective because she's been through something that's different than you, but also ended up putting you on the same place that she is. And that is just a person trying to navigate life, trying to be a good mom, trying to be a good wife, trying to be a good friend, trying to be a productive member of society or whatever you want to call it. And, through that, you guys know that you're the same. So thank you so much, Miss Ollie, for coming on tonight. I could talk to you forever. We're definitely going to have you back on here, and we'll probably announce your role in the company through a blog or a social media post or something else, whenever we figure it out. So thanks again for coming on. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you.